Let's bring in the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, live from Canberra now. Treasurer, good to see you. So the economic front on the up again.
Good to see you.
And heading into a sweet spot over Christmas.
Well, the Australian economy is hotting up as we approach summer, Pete. This is really good news. Positive economic data once again. 350,000 new jobs created since September. And we have also seen in that time 1.2 million people come off the COVID disaster payments as we hit the 70% vaccination rates and the 80% vaccination rates in Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT. And these people didn't go on to welfare. These people went back into work because at the same time we saw the number of people on income support come down. So this is another proof point that our economy is turning around, that the recovery has real momentum. We saw consumer confidence was up this week. We know that job ads are more than 30% higher than going into the pandemic. We know that Australia has retained its AAA credit rating, one of only 9 countries in the world to do so from the 3 leading credit rating agencies. So even after the biggest economic shock this country has seen since the Great Depression, unemployment today is actually lower than when we came to government. But we can't take the recovery for granted. There are global and domestic risks, and that's why we need to remain eternally vigilant. Just
on to the final sitting fortnight of the year, you're halfway through. Many regard it as a week of chaos on the floor, Treasurer. Do you agree with the Prime Minister that the New South Wales ICAC is a, quote, kangaroo court?
Well, Pete, the Prime Minister was making the point that you need to get the balance right between procedural safeguards, procedural fairness, and obviously the need to tackle corruption at all levels. When it comes to the New South Wales ICAC, it has seen the departure from politics of 3 premiers. It's taken the career of 3 premiers. Now, 2 of those premiers did not have adverse findings against them, Nick Ryan and Barry O'Farrell. The third, Gladys Berejiklian, is now going through that process. So it's really important to understand the need to get that balance right. We have a proposal for an integrity commission at the Commonwealth level. We've allocated $150 million to it. We've put out an exposure draft of legislation. We've consulted extensively with stakeholders. It has 2 separate divisions, a law enforcement division and a public sector division. It has the powers of a royal commission. It has independent oversight. Yet the Labor Party are not satisfied. They continue to want to play politics with that issue. If they supported it, it would become a reality, but clearly they've got other things in mind as we head into an election.
Just on to Gladys Berejiklian, though, she resigned, and don't you think there were questions to answer by giving huge grants to a secret boyfriend? You've got to admit, if that was the Labor Party, you'd be all over that like a cheap suit.
Well, I'm making the point that 3 premiers losing their jobs, in the case of 2 of them, not adverse findings against them, and we've yet to see, obviously, the final outcome of the issues involving Gladys Berejiklian. But it's got to get the balance right, and it's got to ensure that the public maintain their commitment and their confidence in our political system, but at the same time, our political system can continue to operate as it's required to do. And we've got many challenging issues right now, whether it's dealing with COVID and the economic recovery or whether it's national security issues like the announcement just last night that we were deploying Australian Federal Police and Australian Defence Force personnel to the Solomon Islands. There are many, many big issues on the government's plate right now, and we continue to focus on it.
OK. Are you laying the groundwork for Gladys Berejiklian to run for the election next year?
Well, I don't think Gladys Berejiklian's made any decisions about her
Do you want
future.
her to?
Obviously, she would be most welcome. She'd be most welcome in federal politics. I think she's a wonderful leader, an incredible politician, and she's a good person to boot, and I have a very positive and constructive relationship with her. But they will be decisions she will need to make in her own time, but I would hope her career in public life is not over yet.
OK. Treasurer, there is a photograph of you and Bridget Archer that we'll show you now to our folks who aren't aware of it. It has been misinterpreted. Just for clarification, can you explain what happened?
Well, actually, Bridget Archer very kindly put out a tweet yesterday explaining that I was just checking on her welfare. She's a very good friend. We, in fact, had dinner earlier in the week together, and her decision to support that motion obviously saw a bit of pressure, and I was just checking to see how she was, and she really appreciated it, and we spent some time later that afternoon and talked through a lot of those issues. So she's a very good person. She's a great local member in her electorate. She's a valued member of our coalition, and to boot, she's also a good friend. So I was just checking to see how she was, and she has said very publicly that she really welcomed that gesture.
So you spoke to her again. So is there any hard feelings?
No, certainly not. The conversations were very, very fruitful, very constructive, and obviously she's an important member of our team going forward.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, as always, good to have you with us. We'll talk to you soon.